Mums here, coming to you live from Surprise in Arizona. Hope you're having a super fantastic, sparkling day. Welcome to Before the Dirt Nap podcast number 2010. It was a very interesting year. Strange historical laws and customs that affected our ancestors. So, because it's Fun Friday, we thought we'd look at some weird and wacky stuff, and you never know. Sorry, we're on late. We just got back. I haven't even taken my sweatshirt off. We just got back from our walk, so please forgive us for that. Anyway. Let's see, what strange and weird things do we have for you tonight? So my question for you this evening is, what's the weirdest old law or custom you have ever heard of? Let us know in the comments below. We'd greatly appreciate that because it's always fun to hear what you have today. So history is full of rules that by today's standards sound completely bizarre. From laws about how you could dress, whom you could marry, and even what names you could give your children. Our ancestors lived under some pretty strange restrictions. And I will say that naming your children thing does come into play even in modern day today, because there are certain names that certain countries will not allow you to call your children. Even if you go and try to register it, they will say, no, you have to name them something else. Anyway, so let's have a look. We have the sumptuary laws, which is dressing for your social class. Did you know that many parts of medieval Europe, people weren't allowed to wear certain colors or fabrics unless they belonged to nobility? In England in 1363, commoners couldn't wear velvet, silk, or gold embroidery because those were reserved for the wealthy. In colonial America, some colonies banned people from wearing lace and extravagant clothes unless they had a certain income level. So you can see how they were separating the different classes and things. In Japan, during the Edo period, only samurai could wear swords and certain hairstyles that were reserved. Sorry, this is why I don't read scripts. Only samurai could wear swords, and certain hairstyles were reserved for specific classes. Some records show that people were actually fined or jailed for dressing above their station. Imagine getting arrested for wearing the wrong color. I'm just like, yeah, that would be me all the time. Because there's one that's coming, in England, you couldn't wear purple because it was reserved for royalty. Maybe that's why I like it so much. Now we'll talk about it's number 2, the strange laws of marriage and courtship. Love might be blind, but history certainly wasn't. Marriage laws have been shockingly strict in the past. Cousin marriages. While marrying a cousin might seem odd today, it was once very common, especially among royalty. In some places, it was even encouraged. Hand-holding was illegal. Yes, it was. In 17th century Puritan New England, public displays of affection, including holding hands, could lead to punishment. This one cracked me up, and this next one cracked me up because I've heard about it over the years. The bundling custom. In colonial America, young couples were sometimes allowed to sleep in the same bed during courtship, but with a wooden board separating them. Just some of the things. In some rural European villages, if a man and a woman spent the night together, they had to get married even if nothing happened. And that got me thinking. I thought, what if one of them was already married and they were in circumstances beyond their control where they had to end up spending the night together? What happens then? I haven't found out the answer to that one, but I'm going to keep looking for that one, because I know there's times where, based on circumstances, that some forbidden things happen because of circumstances beyond control. And so then what happens? Yeah. Number 3, the weird rules about naming children. If you've ever struggled to name a baby, imagine having the government decide for you. Germany and France, even today, some countries have officially banned name lists, and you can't pick a name. Oh, sorry. Let me reread that again. Even some countries today have official baby name lists, and you can't pick a name outside of them. And that's in Germany and France. In ancient Rome, certain names were reserved for specific classes. Slaves couldn't have the same name as citizens. Wasn't that interesting? Iceland's naming committee. I mean, they have a naming committee. Oh my gosh. If a name isn't on an approved list, parents have to petition to use it. Yes. And even today in some other countries too, there may be a trend going on, or some sort of rock band, because people would name their kids after rock bands, after all sorts of things. And in some countries, they're sort of like, they're like, you got to go choose something else. And they don't find out about that till they go to register the baby. In 18th century England, some families gave all of their sons the same first name, distinguishing them only by their middle names. And in some countries, that is actually still relevant today. I was on a Disney cruise, and our waiter had, what was his name? I've got a photo of it somewhere. He had his name, and then there was another word after it. And so we asked him what his name was, and he said that he told us what his name was. And because most of them, you see, just have first names, not first and last names. And but he then explained to us what, and I said, so that's your first name, middle name on there. He goes, oh, no. He goes, this is my first name. All of my brothers have the same name. And we're like, and then the word that was after, I think it was he Vietnamese or Indonesian? Might have been Philippines. I'm trying to remember. We're talking 2011 on this one. And he turns around and he says, no, he says, my middle name tells people that I was the fourth son born to the father's name. And they actually have the father's name, as all the brothers have the same name, and it's their father's name. And then the word after it tells whether they're the firstborn, the secondborn, the thirdborn, or the fourthborn, and so on. And I just thought, well, isn't that interesting? So yes, in some places, and then you got people like George Foreman, who called all of his children George. There are people out there where they have given them the same first name. I mean, you've got those that have got the third, the fourth, the fifth, the sixth after their names. You've got seniors and juniors. It's all around. Number 4, odd jobs and strange professions from the past. Our ancestors worked some jobs that would never exist today. There was the sin eaters. In medieval Europe, people could hire a sin eater to symbolically take on the sins of the dead by eating food placed on the corpse. Ooh! I was sort of like, yeah, that one's just too crazy and weird. I have to leave it in. Knocker-uppers. Before these take on a whole new meaning. Before alarm clocks, people were paid to tap on windows to wake workers up in the morning. Yes. And as most of them were, yeah. The town leech keeper. In some places, doctors didn't keep their own leeches. There was an official leech keeper who managed the supply. Because in those days, they would put leeches on wounds to help seal the wound. I mean, leeches were good for doing all sorts of things. And there are some where they still use leeches today to help with bleeding and infections and that sort of stuff. Yeah, quite gross and quite fascinating at the same time. Some 19th century census records list people's occupations as witch finder and even professional mourner. Imagine putting that on a resume. A professional mourner. Okay. I guess that could be for where they had a John Doe, and maybe it could be where they had a John Doe, and of course they didn't know who it was, but they had to bury them anyway, so they would hire official mourner so that the person wasn't, I guess, alone at their funeral. I don't know. Number 5, the most bizarre and unbelievable historical laws. Some laws from the past seem so strange you'd think they were made up, but nope, they were real. In England, 13th century, killing a swan was punishable by death because all swans were considered royal property. Think about that one for a moment. Yeah. They are still considered royal property as far as I'm aware, but I don't think the penalty is death for killing one. You might get imprisonment for it. I don't know. I'd have to go look that up. But I do know that today they're still considered royal property in England. Colonial America, it was illegal to celebrate Christmas in parts of New England in the 1600s. Interesting. Yes, it kind of gives a new meaning to the Santa and Pete story. If you've never seen the Santa and Pete movie, it's a really cool movie. Santa starts off as St. Nicholas, and he meets Pete, who was an indentured slave. they run off together because Pete helps Santa escape, so he decides to go and keep him company on the trip. I mean, Santa also says to him, do you want to come with me? And off they go. And have these great adventures. And then you find out how Santa got his red suit, how he got the reindeer, how they flew, how he ended up with a sled, how he ended up with going down the chimney. All of that is explained in Santa and Pete. It's a really cool story. And James Earl Jones is in it too. And he's the storyteller in this one, telling his grandson about Pete and who Pete was. It's a really cool movie. But yeah, that one was illegal to celebrate Christmas in parts of New England in the 1600s. I kind of think that's when that was sort of based, that story, but I don't know. But it kind of gives a new thing. Oh yeah, and how about putting stockings out too? That was another one that they did in there. France in the 1800s, women weren't allowed to wear pants in public without a special police permit. And this law is was technically still on the books in 2013. I tell you, there are some laws out there that were brought in like crazy times like this that are still on the books today. Whether they are still enforced or not is a completely different story. So yeah, there's some weird and wacky rules out there that have been around for centuries and nobody's just bothered to update them. So keep an eye out for that. In some US states in the 19th century, dueling was legal, but only if both participants survived. Thought the idea, yeah. So if one of them died, you got arrested for murder. If you both survived, it was legal. Go think about that. History is full of surprises, and our ancestors lived under some pretty bizarre rules. Some of those bizarre rules are actually still in effect today because nobody's gone back and changed them. But if you go and have a look in some law books and things, you will find some of these weird, bizarre rules just tucked away in some little corner of some book somewhere, where they're still actually in there. But do some digging, and this is I'm going to challenge you with something. Do some digging and see what strange laws or customs affected your ancestors, and let us know what you find. Excuse me. And so that's all I have for you guys today. It was just short and sweet, and yeah, there's crazy things like, I think it's New Jersey where it's illegal to slurp your soup. And in Alaska, it is illegal for two moose to be seen on the road together. I'm not sure how they enforce that one, nor am I sure how the moose are supposed to know that. But like I said, there's some crazy stuff out there. What were some of the other ones that we had? I'm trying to remember them all. We used to get these books that were called Big John Readers, I think it was. I think they're up to like volume 30 or something. But these books are about this thick and about this tall, this wide. And they have all sorts of stuff in them. And I think they're called Big Johns. Pretty sure it's Big Johns. But these books were absolutely, they had some amazing, amazing stories in there. And depending how long you were going to be in the restroom, they would have short, medium, and long pieces in there. And you could go to the short ones and figure out what you wanted to read on that if you're going to be there a short amount of time. And they had them grouped in the index at the front. And but they always had in there strange laws that were still in effect today. Yes, like two moose are not allowed to be seen on the road together. And in New Jersey, it's illegal to slurp your soup. But I wish I could remember the other ones. But they had some ones in there that would have you roaring with laughter. Absolutely. Oh, speaking of roaring with laughter, today I actually finished. I love reading memoirs and biographies and autobiographies. I love reading those. It gives you insight into a person's life. You know, it's their legacy that they're leaving behind. It's their story. And I especially love it when the person narrates their own book. And I just love learning about other people's lives and how they overcame obstacles, you know, what challenges they faced, how they overcame those challenges and everything else. So the book I finished today on Audible, which I did not want it to finish, it was so good, was Sharon Gleese, who used to play Christine Cagney and Cagney and Lacey from back in the 80s. It was her book, and it's called Apparently There Were Some Complaints. So if you want to go check, apparently there were some complaints out. That is narrated by, especially on audio, is narrated by Sharon herself. It is a phenomenal book. I would sit there just raptured, and I would find stuff because I always listen to audiobooks while I'm having lunch, having a meal at the table. it gives me conversation. Okay. Some people go, you should be just enjoying your food. Yes, I am enjoying my food, but at the same time, I'm having a conversation with somebody. Well, they're talking, I'm listening. So I would purposely extend my time at the breakfast table, when I was having lunch, when I was having dinner, just so I could listen to more of her book. And her book was phenomenal. She is straight shooter, no crap, no bullshit. What you see is what you get with her. She is a phenomenal actress, and I remember watching her in Cagney and Lacey, later in Burn Notice. She also did one called Queer as Folks or something like that, and I have not seen that one. I didn't know that she had done that one, but I haven't seen that one. And I've seen her on guest appearances on different shows as well. And she also did the stage version of Misery in West End on London, and played Kathy Bates' character from the movie. And I'm like thinking, oh my gosh, and I remember that movie. That movie scared the crap out of me. And I'm like, putting that on stage, and they made it as close to the book as they possibly could on stage. Because she talked about that's what they did with it. And I was just like, oh my gosh, I haven't read the book. I've only seen the movie. And they said it was darker than the movie. And I'm like, well, that scared the crap out of me. What's a live stage performance going to do? But her book, you will laugh, you will cry, you will cringe. You will go through a whole range of emotions listening to her story. Her story is an incredible story. And like I said, there's no BS in there. It's just straight shooting. She is who she is. And she is just a phenomenal actress. And the battles that she has had to deal with, a lot of people will relate to some of her, like with her battles with alcohol, her battles with drugs. And that was in the earlier years for the drugs thing. And just some of the stuff that she battled with and dealt with. Her family dynamics was very interesting. She did get sent away to boarding school, Catholic boarding school. So there's a lot of stories that are in there that people will relate to. And like I was thinking, oh yeah, I can relate to. Yeah, I totally get that. I get what she's talking about with that. And it's like, oh, I haven't been through that, but from what she was telling me, I didn't want to go through it. So, but there's a lot of relatable stories. She's just down to earth and real. Yep, that's her. But totally thoroughly enjoyed the book. And when I went to give it a rating on Goodreads, they only got up to 5 stars. I really wanted to give it a 10. It was that good of a book. And there's not many that I can say that about, but I really enjoyed that one. So it's called Apparently There Were Some Complaints. Apparently there were some complaints. It's a really good read. Well, get the audio version because she's reading it. So she puts in the emphasis in there. And I guess because she's reading it, it brings it more to life as well than just reading the words on the page. So, you can always do both, get the book and get the audio and listen to the book while you read it. I know people that do that, but I preferred to listen to biographies and that. But her story was just incredible, and she's still alive and kicking. And she talks about some of the lifelong friends that she's made through her acting and everything else. And she was one of the last contract actresses with Universal Studios. And back when she first started, they would actually put you under a contract for a certain number of years. And you would get a salary whether you were working or not. And she was one of the last ones that they did that with. So that was kind of interesting hearing how that worked. And I'm like, well, it's just steady income. But anyway, so go what strange things have come up in your past, or strange rules and customs that you've come across when researching your genealogy. Let us know in the comments below, and your challenges to go find some strange, weird lore or custom that would have affected your ancestors, and see what you come up with. And with that, we are out of here. Go out, have a super fantastic sparkling evening, and we'll catch you guys back here tomorrow evening